Hello and welcome to Game and Chat, the podcast where we invite members of the gaming community and industry to join us to play their favourite multiplayer games whilst telling us about themselves and why they love these games so much. And also on the case of the members of the gaming industry, to talk about the games that they have created and to learn more about them. So I'm your host Mike, and I am joined by Claire Morwood, who is going to tell us about her game Asterism. So Claire, please say hello.
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 Yeah, do you want me to? Sorry. Shall I introduce myself?
Yeah. So obviously the first question that we have is, would you be so kind to introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Claire. I am a self-taught game developer. I've been working on freelance and working on solo projects, as well as a small company I have called Freefold Games for around 6 years or so in the industry. Yeah, and I'm also a member of Biome Collective, which is a digital art community in Dundee, Scotland.
Okay, fantastic. How did you get into gaming? What's your first experience with gaming? It could be either developing games or, playing games.
So I think when I was little, we always had a computer in the house for as long as I can remember. And at first it was just text-based things on MS-DOS and stuff, but there was still some games on there. But I think the main memories I have after that are, you used to get magazines with free CD-ROMs that had 100 freeware games on them. That's some of my first memories of I think I just was really fascinated by putting the disc into the computer, and then suddenly you've got all these cool games that you can play around with. And I always just really loved computers, and then got into more consoles later on, Game Boy and PlayStation and things like that.
Wow. I mean, I remember when with PlayStation Magazine, and they had demo discs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think on one demo disc there was something about a program that you could actually create your own games as well. And I thought, oh, that was really, really cool. And you could actually try other people's games. And I remember reading somewhere about John Romero, when he first got his starting out, he was basically just creating games and then, putting them out on these floppy disks. So, and then sending them off to companies, which would then just have these demos available for, people to play all these different games, and his would be included within them. So, what was it about video game development that appealed to you and led you to the career path you are now on?
Well, it's kind of interesting hearing you talk about I guess those tools that you can make your own games with as well. I did have I'm trying to think what I had. There was a PlayStation 1 game called Music 2000 that I remember playing, where you can make your own music within the whole game is just it's a music making program on PlayStation. And I did have a few tools like that, Game Maker as well on PC that I used to use a lot. Yeah. And I think I just always found it so cool that you could make stuff that was interactive, and you could poke things and it would happen. And then I don't know, I always really enjoyed making little worlds that you could interact with and then share with people, and they could poke at your thing that you'd made and make it do stuff. So yeah, I did
used to dabble with Game Maker. I did used to dabble with Game Maker, but I never had the capacity to, fully create a fully immersive game. So I did the tutorials and things, and I was astounded about the amount of tools that you had and how to create sprites and things like that within the actual program itself. So it is very, very intuitive, but I just personally didn't have the capacity. I find myself, I enjoy playing games more than making them, but
yeah.
At least you got to take it to the next step and actually, create something. So, hats off to you.
Oh, thank you. It's a lot of fun.
So, in what capacity are you involved with Asterism?
So Asterism is primarily a solo project, which means that for me, I'm sort of doing pretty much everything on it. So that's the design, the programming, art, and music. There's been some areas of it that I've had some collaborations on, but it's mostly a solo project.
Okay, So you do the direction, the game design, audio, and wow, that's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah.
When did the yes. When did the development for the game first begin, and what inspired its creation?
So I think because it's like a very heavily music based game. I think with Asterism it was the music that came first, and the game kind of came along after that. So in terms of inspiration, I used to play like a lot of music when I was a teenager, and then I kind of stopped for quite a long time. And during sometime around lockdown, kind of like picked up my guitar again and started trying to like write more music, and then also learnt about how to make music digitally for the first time, which I'd never done before. And so I started like writing a few tracks, and then because I've got this like experience with game design, like started thinking about like, oh, how could I? Is there a way I could make this something that's interactive as well, and like combine those two things to make? I guess a lot of the inspiration was kind of like music videos as well. I kind of wanted to have something where you're listening to the music, but then the thing that you're interacting with, the thing that you're changing is like the visuals of it. So yeah, it sort of like developed from there as how can I make music interactive?
Okay, I mean you do see a lot of like rhythm games. So obviously you have music there, and then you have to input the buttons to in time to score points and stuff like that. But yours is almost like the other way around. So I mean you have the music and it's making something immersive on the screen. So it's not a rhythm game. It's, well, how would you explain it really?
Yeah, no, I think I would agree it's not a rhythm game. I think actually, like, I was looking at rhythm games and like, because I think when you think about music games in terms of like popular music games that people have heard of, a lot of them are rhythm games. But the thing that I didn't want for Asterism was the fact that in a rhythm game it's kind of skill based, and if you get something wrong it like restarts the music and you have to try again. And in terms of that experience of actually listening to the music, it completely, like, for me it just like takes me out of it. And it's like, oh, suddenly I'm like not able to, I don't know, because I really like as a lot of people do, like the feeling of just like listening to music and then you're kind of like flowing with it, and it kind of like takes you somewhere. But then if you're suddenly like taken away from that and you're like it said like you're not good enough, you have to like start again, then that's like not the experience that I wanted. So that was kind of like one of the main constraints that I put on the design, was that I wanted it to be so like whatever you did within the game, it's never going to interrupt you, which means that the music has to continue, the level has to continue no matter what actions you take. But I still wanted it to feel like your actions have like meaning, so it's kind of more like you're exploring and dancing within the music, rather than there's rhythm elements, like there's things that you can do on the beat that feel good, but it's not like you'll be penalized if you don't do that.
Oh, well, that's all right then. That's all right then. I mean, sometimes the things that help games stand out is by doing something that is not, it goes with the grain, that goes with the flow with things. I mean, that's like, for example, like Celeste, how that became so popular, or Shovel Knight at its time as well. It's doing these like things that, goes against the grain. So like, this is where your game obviously, will shine, because it's not like, oh yeah, it's music, it's based all the way around music or themed around music, but it's not your typical rhythm game. It's got something so much more to it. It's got more depth to it. Like you said, like your actions are part of it as well, as part of the experience. Now you did develop another game before Asterism, so it's called Before I Forget, and did that inspire Asterism in any capacity?
Yeah, I think in some ways. So yeah, Before I Forget was a game that I made with my company Freefall Games, which is me and one other person, Shella Ramanan. So it's a company that we kind of set up kind of in order to make and release that game. And Before I Forget is a like narrative exploration kind of walking simulator type game about a woman with dementia. But there's this section towards the end of the game that I think kind of I guess got me starting to think about this idea of like interactive music sequences in games a little bit, where as the player, you're throughout the game, you're the character's Nita, and you're walking around her house, and there's like a corridor that connects quite a few rooms. But there's one section where you're in the bedroom, and you need to go through the corridor to the rooms. But we like made this kind of sort of surreal extended version of the corridor that's kind of split up into lots of sections, and it's all like the lighting's weird and like red and everything's like very intense in that part of the game. But to kind of start that process, you turn on the radio and you begin walking, and then this piece of music starts playing. And you can like freely look around and kind of walk at your own speed, but at certain points in the music, it like teleports you to different positions in this corridor, and it kind of gradually gets more intense as it goes. So it was this like very like timed event sequence that was like really curated to the music, and that was like a sort of design collaboration between a few of us on that project. But I think, yeah, so I was the one that like implemented it in terms of like the programming and some of the like art and things like that, and I think it got me into that mindset of like, oh, it's like actually quite effective if I don't know, like you've got these sequences that are like something happens in the music and now you're like somewhere new, and it is like a music video. It's like the verse kicks in or whatever it is. It's like this section of the music kicks in and suddenly you're in like a different section, and it's makes you feel very in touch with the music, very connected to it. So yeah, I think that inspired it a little bit.
So going back to Asterism, the whole point of why we're here, obviously, can you give us a brief overview of Asterism? What kind of game is it, and what is it about?
Yeah, so I've been calling it like an interactive music video album. So it's an album of music that every track in the album has a level associated with it, and it's kind of as if you're playing in the music video for that song. The game is set in space. It's kind of loosely based on the solar system, and you begin in the sun, and then you like go on a journey outwards towards the edges of the solar system and beyond a little bit. And yeah, so the idea is that you're following this like trail of sound wave signals that you're investigating, and they take you outwards away from your home.
So was the musical element always going to be was always in the foundations for Asterism? I'm guessing it was always very, very much implemented from the get-go. You wanted it to be music based.
Yeah.
Okay. So when selecting the music choices for Asterism, how did you go about choosing which emotion you wanted to portray through the various scenes of the game?
So do you mean in terms of like songwriting for that, like how?
Yeah, much like the theme of the songs, the mood of the songs.
I think it was different depending on the song. Some of it was just like I wanted to write a song, and I didn't even really think about the game. It was just, this is something I want to write about and something I want to like create music about, and then I fitted it in later into the narrative. And then some of it was, so because it's kind of based on the solar system a little bit, after I had a few songs, I kind of started to try and map them out according to like, you know, the planets and the sun and things, like which music I thought would work in which place, which was kind of partly dependent on I guess the like associations that we have with like particular planets, and you know, like I guess you think about like Mars, and it's quite like a dramatic kind of like. Well, I guess I'm a lot of it as I'm thinking about like the planets, yeah. Like and things like that. Where there's like these associations that we have, yeah, like a red planet, and like Jupiter is like big, and like I don't know,
it's like the gas giant.
Yeah. So some of that came into it with some of the songs. I think actually like Jupiter's probably a good example. I knew that I wanted to make something that was like quite like it felt quite big, and I originally wrote it as like kind of like a more synthy, dancey type track. That it's not quite that anymore, but had like elements of it that felt very like, yeah, like like this big moment in the middle of the album. And then the first few tracks kind of, I think it kind of feeds into the art style a little bit as well. I try to like match all these like elements of it, so the first few tracks feel a bit more like grounded in some ways in terms of like the instruments that I used, and also with like the art I've got a lot more so that something I haven't mentioned, I guess, is the art style of the game is like all handcrafted, or like mostly handcrafted, sort of stop motion-y, cardboardy type things. And the first few tracks are much more like that.
It reminds me a little bit of like the music video for, is it Jackhammer? I think I can't tell you who sang the song. I wanna be a jackhammer, and it's like made up with like fruit and vegetables and things. It's very, very like early 90s, I think, or late 80s and early 90s. And it's a bit like, I don't know, it has that similar sort of feel to it from the aesthetic.
Cool. I'm looking that up right now. Yeah,
Peter Gabriel, I want to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, someone did recommend me something else that he'd done in relation to Asterism as well, actually. Okay, yeah, I can see like a preview. Yeah, I'm gonna watch that
later. Anyway, so let's talk about the protagonist of the game now. It's Ruby. So if you could tell us a little bit about Ruby and what motivates her.
Yeah, so Ruby she lives on the sun. She's a Solarian. She's like a researcher. She kind of started this research group in order to investigate these signals that she's been hearing, and she wants to, I guess, like, she's very like curious about what these signals are, and kind of feels this like real urge to discover more about them. And at the same time, I think she's quite what's the word, like feels quite stifled in the sun. Like, she's also got this urge that she just wants to get out and explore things anyway. So this kind of opportunity arises where she's like, actually, in order to like research more about these signals, I have to leave and I have to go out there myself and find out what's going on. So her motivation is this like urge to discover like the unknown and kind of go out into this scary space.
Brilliant. I mean, that is the case for many young adults who, you know, especially if they're in like a small town or village or whatever, and they want to see more of the world, they want to explore, they want to go out into the big city or, you know, to the countryside and, you know, stuff like that. So I can see that, you know, vibing with a lot of people. Now, the game itself is made up, as you said, it's almost like music videos each one. So how many playable music videos does Asterism have to offer?
There's 12. There's like an initial one in the sun, which you can kind of, is like a tutorial for the game, and you can spend as long as you want there. So that one's not timed in the same way, but all the other ones, the 11 other tracks, are like timed to the length of the song, so they're much more.
So you got enough songs there for a full album then. Really?
Yeah.
Could we see an LP happening in the future?
I mean, I'm releasing like the music on Bandcamp, and I'm making a CD of it, so I'm definitely doing that. Yeah.
Oh, look, we got an exclusive right here. Okay. So, like, when developing Asterism, was there any idea or feature that you wanted to include initially, but couldn't, or felt like it was no longer necessary? So, like, any initial ideas that you had, which then didn't end up in the final product?
Yeah. So, I had this like early like project file of the game that I was like playing around with before I kind of like started in a new project. But one of the things that I did think about doing in that was, so it's based on the solar system, and I was like, it would be cool if it kind of felt like the distances that you were traveling between all the planets were like relative to the actual solar system. So I was kind of trying to like put this scene together to see how that would feel. Like you're on this little spaceship, and then I think I had to make it so that you were basically traveling at like the speed of light or something, so that it was like didn't take like years, but so it'll take like a couple of minutes or whatever to get to the first planet, and then it maybe would take like several hours to get to the last one. And yeah, so I guess like I tried that and realized that I needed to make some kind of decisions about how like, accurately I wanted to have this link in there about it being the solar system, and how much I just wanted to be inspired by that. Because as well as like the time factor, there's also in like the game engine, if things are too big, it just like glitches out. It can't handle like distances that are that big. So yeah, just like pixels start going weird, and which is really cool. But it wasn't really the like experience.
It's cool to look at, but then you think, yeah, but that's a bug that needs sorting.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Yeah,
totally
maybe it's
understandable. Oh, how am I going to fix that? I mean, it looks pretty, but I'm pretty sure people don't want to see that for the upteenth time when, yeah, that's understandable. So when you are not working on games yourself, you also like to teach others through workshops and things. So how often do you do these workshops?
So actually, no, I did do one last weekend, but apart from that, I've not done as many recently. I was doing them every few weeks or months for a little while. But yeah, I mean, I would like to do them more actually. So, yes, a few times.
I mean, at least you're doing it. You're helping to pass on the craft to other aspiring game developers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you was at MCN Comic Con X EGX the other weekend, and you did have a demo for Asterism there. How was the fan feedback from people that were attending the event?
Yeah, really, really nice. People are so friendly and like, just like wanting to chat about it afterwards, which was nice because I think like with the music, I've always been a bit like self-conscious about kind of like sharing my music, and that's part of the reason I wanted to do the project in the first place. Was I was like, well, if I force myself and I tell everyone I'm gonna like make this music album and make a game around it, then I have to I have to share it. I have to like let people listen to it. But yeah, a lot of people like commented on liking the music, liking like the vocals and stuff, which was really nice for me to hear. And also a lot of people tend to, the first thing they'll comment on is the art style of the game. They're like handcrafted, like origami and like paper and stuff like that. Which, yeah, it's interesting for me because I think it was like the music was the first sort of part of the project, and then it was like the gameplay, and the art was almost like this like thing that came after that. And it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's like something that I've probably spent, out of like all the aspects of the game, I've probably spent the most time like talking about and like blogging about. But it's kind of like not the reason I made it, so it's really interesting to me that like that's the first thing that people talk about, and it's probably because it's visuals that you see it, and it's quite like a unique style. You don't really see that much like stop motion kind of craft in games compared to like
it's something you don't see. Well, I think it's starting to make a comeback in some places, but before, I mean, you think like Wallace and Gromit and the animation, like stop motion animation, which at its time, you look at it and think, I mean, it's still enjoyable to see even today. You think, how did they do that? And the dedication that one must have to, move the screen, or, they have the camera set and then it's like, move this a little bit, move that a little bit, move that a little bit. And then when you see the full product and, it moves effortlessly and you think,
it's incredible.
There was a lot of effort that was involved. So, a lot of respect for the people that do that. And I'm going to go off on a tiny bit of a tangent to dial back to something that I said before. I believe the song is actually Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel, not Jack Hammer. So
cool.
Correct myself. So I know that maybe in the comment someone's going to say, it's not Jack Hammer, it's Sledgehammer, you tool. Oh. Right. If you had to compare Asterism to any other game in terms of gameplay, overall theme or story, what would be its closest match? So, like any other similar games, but I suppose it is also like where you take an aspiration from as well.
Yeah. So there's this game that I played a few years ago called Teenage Blob by Team Laserbeam, and it's like it's an indie game that was like created as like they say it's like a half game, half album. So it's like an EP that they've made like an interactive game, like a game that interacts with the music for. And I think that was very like influential for me because it is kind of done in that same way of like each like section of the game of like the narrative of the game, you're like within one of the tracks on this EP, and then the level or like that section of the game is sort of very designed around like the song and what's happening. And yeah, I think like I don't think it's super well known, so you should like anyone listening you should definitely check it out because it's really really cool.
Okay, I'll definitely put it on my on me. What is that on Steam? Is that on?
On Itch. I actually don't know if it's on Steam as well. I can check right now, but it's definitely on Itch.
Okay, on itch.io, is it?
Yeah.
I believe we touched upon this question a little bit before, but we can go into a bit more depth on it, I suppose. So, being as though you are relatively self-taught in video game development, what are some of the video game development tools that you use? Now, you did say like Game Maker and stuff like that. So, is there any particular engines that you use and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, also just to go back on that, it is on Steam as well. I just checked, so you can play it on both Steam. But yeah,
that's Teenage Blob, is it? Teenage Blob on Steam.
Yeah. Yeah, game development tools. Yes, I do use Bitsy a lot, and like you said, I used Game Maker when I was younger. Other tools I've used recently, there's something called Processing, which is like a JavaScript library that you can use to make like sort of interactive digital like art visual things, which is quite nice to use. It's got like a nice like online editor that you can like see sort of feedback for straight away. I used that recently. There's like a little tool called Tracery as well, which you can use to make like sort of semi-randomized like pieces of text, and like you can kind of like create how do you describe it, like set up the kind of like sentence structure but then like change words within it, and so you can make like interesting things within that. So I use that in like combination with
change up the commands a little bit by changing certain things. So like if you wanted something that was red to become green, well then you change the word red to green and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so that's really fun to play around with.
I'm spelling it out for the layman, but basically the layman is me, because obviously I don't know that much about game development. So if I understand it, then hopefully somebody else may as well. Having previously developed and released, before I forget, on multiple platforms, including the Nintendo Switch, with threefold games, what prompted you to work on Asterism in your own name?
Yeah, I guess for me, there's kind of like separate things. Like Threefold Games is like a company that I have with another person, and there's like games that we all make together. But then for Asterism, it's like it's a very very like personal project. And there's other games. There's like a lot of other games that I've made, like very small things like game jams and just like prototypes and small things that I've made like by myself as well. And this just it's like me. It's like a me game. So it's like
go wild with your own ideas, and you haven't got to confer with anybody else. I mean, not that there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I mean, when we hear an idea out loud and you think, oh, do I really want to go with that? Or if you've got somebody to bounce ideas off of and you go, oh, that's a really really good idea, but how about doing it this way? And it work. But at least as a solo developer as well, you have freedom to just try things and just see how it works for you, and obviously you'd be able to develop the game that you yourself would also like to play. So I can see that.
I think as well, just like the whole the process. Like for me, like with like these kind of games, the process itself is like expressive, and it's like a kind of outlet for me creatively. And so I don't know, like it's kind of like just an important thing for me to be able to do sometimes by myself, to like I don't know, yeah, like use that process as like a way to like be creatively expressive. Yeah, I suppose that's kind of the reason as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so I've got a couple more questions to go through here. Just let's see. Right, so having previously worked with Plugin Digital before I forget, how was that experience for you, and what has prompted the desire to publish Asterism by yourself, or to self-publish?
Yeah, so with Before I Forget, which we made with my company Freefall Games, we collaborated with Plugin Digital to release the game on Switch and Xbox, as well as a few PC stores. And which was, yeah, it was really great, I think, because we just wouldn't have been able to do that ourselves, because it costs money to put your game on like other places. So it was like really nice to have like be in partnership with a company who we could work with on that, and just to have their like expertise on that. But I think there's also like there's like admin that comes with that. There's like business stuff, and I think for me, like with my personal stuff, I want to focus on the creativity more than I want to focus on it as like a business venture, as something, you know, I want to sell it and it to be commercial, but more than that, I want to just make stuff. And I was very lucky that I got like arts funding for this game, so I was able to like fund the development of it in a way that means I don't need to necessarily like have I'm not like relying on lots of revenue to kind of like you know go into the next project or anything. So it's more like I want to, is where I want to focus my time, I suppose, is the answer to that.
Okay. That is, to be fair, that is totally understandable. I mean, you have your creative types and you have your business types, and sometimes, you know, you can get creative business types. But when it comes to game developing, for example, and there are people that would prefer to actually just develop the game, and unfortunately, they may not have the, I say capacity, or you know, the ability to actually sell that game. They know it's good. They've created it. They've, you know, done all the modeling, the art, the concept art, coding, and absolutely everything. But when it comes to, you know, trying to actually sell or publish the game, you know, it's a lot of plates that you have to spin, especially as a game developer, or, you know, as a solo game developer, where you have to, you know, develop your game, do all the other things that go around game development, and then on top of that, having to try and publish it as well. So I suppose, you know, you could learn a lot of things with like Plugin Digital, where they were handling, you know, the actual publishing of the game, so you could focus on the development. But maybe you've picked up some things from how they published the game, and you think, oh, I can actually, you know, do that myself. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not to say that I wouldn't in future. It's kind of just the like right now, at least, like for the initial release and things, I'm planning to just do what I can by myself, and then see how things go and how much energy I have following on from that.
Well, lastly, we are now coming to the end of this episode. So, you know, thank you, Claire, for coming along. Lastly, could you list all the platforms on which you hope to release Asterism on?
Yeah, so it'll definitely be out on PC via Steam and itch. I am investigating Mac and Linux, but I am not promising anything yet because I haven't got it working. But maybe, and that's currently where it's going to be released.
Okay, and hopefully as well. I mean, if it can come to Switch as well, or to the Nintendo Switch successor, even better. But you know, first things first. You know, get it out onto a platform, and then when you can, you know, move it onto other platforms. Well, just to know that there's at least one person on Switch who will buy it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that'll be lovely one day.
Two, because I'll make my brother buy it as well. So that's two. All right. Well, like with all good things that must come to an end, so must this show. So thank you, Claire, and thank you everybody at home for listening and viewing this episode. Claire, if you have anything that you'd like to say to any of your followers, any of our followers, this is your time to plug your stuff. So where can people find you? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky at Shimmer Glitch. I also have a newsletter, which you can get to on my website, which confusingly is shimmerwitch.space. So that's sort of the main ways of contacting me. Like I said earlier, I'm a member of Biome Collective in Dundee, who are a really cool collective of people. So you can Google or like search engine them as well, and like see all the cool stuff that they're doing. And like thanks very much for having me. It's been really cool to chat about the game, and like nice to be part of this community as well.
I'm lost for words now. I've been talking all this time and now I'm lost for words. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about your game as well. We hope all the best with Asterism. We hope it gets the best success on Steam, on itch.io, and all the platforms, so it can eventually come to Switch, obviously, because we are Nintendo centric, to be fair. And anything that we think would be really, really cool on the system, and let's face it, it is sorely lacking in video game, music, album kind of games. So there is a lot of variety on Switch. I will not, say there isn't, but there, it is lacking in some genres, and I believe that yours is just niche. That it could help fill that void.
Yeah, no, that will be definitely a cool thing to happen one day. So I will aim for that.
Well, if you need any help with publishers in that sense, I do know a couple that may be able to help out. So I can always pass you their details over. Awesome. Well. And for everybody at home, until next time, keep on gaming.